8 o'clock hour live in the mix and I'm playing your favorite hits and tunes at the second hour of the show. So just good morning to you guys if you just tuned in to the Superstation 99.7 Radio Kuwait, the breakfast show with me, Aki, along with T here in the studio from 8 till 9.
And today is Tuesday, the 17th of April, and as you know, like every Tuesday, we must have Dr. Julia Dinka with us. Good morning, Dr. Julia.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good, how are
It's
you
good to have
guys?
you on the show again.
It's great to have you
Good
on
to
the show.
see you, V.
So today we are going to be talking about something very interesting, which
That's right.
is revolved around worrying, and especially knowing that lots of people worry a lot. They're worriers. So today we're going to be talking in general about this because there is a disease called worrying disease.
Or
So you're going
yeah,
to be talking
that's
to us
right.
in details about it. So
Yeah, so and this is a topic that a lot of people can relate to because I'm sure that we all worry about certain things, but I think it becomes a problem when you are always living in the ideas that are, that something bad is going to happen or that you worry about the negativity of things. So today I'm going to just talk about, worrying is overthinking actually, and it's part of anxiety. So if people have heard of anxiety disorder, it is part of it. And what I'm going to talk about is also part of worrying is called cognitive distortion, where we kind of distort what we think and we make it look like it's something else. So I'm going to talk about some of the most common distortions of how people can be overthinking, and also, how people can think about the idea that most of the time worries causes people to be afraid, and because they're constantly so anxiety, what does it do to our brain? It's like overstimulates it, makes it hypervigilant, and when you overstimulate your brain, you're constantly thinking, and that's why a lot of times people get really tired. They're physically tired, mentally tired, because they feel like these thoughts have taken over and they can't get rid of these thoughts. So today, and I think I like the topic. We said that we're going to do this because I feel like most of the time people that I see at the clinic, oftentimes this is one of the major problems that they have, especially if they're already diagnosed with anxiety disorders and feeling constantly telling you that even when I'm sleeping, my brain is running and running about certain things or ideas or whatever. So it's and I also think that a lot of people can relate to it. As you probably know, a lot of people, and myself, I know a lot of people, they're constantly they worried, and it takes a lot of time from them, but it also takes away the moment. If you're worrying, then you're not really living in the moment, and you're not happy because you're constantly thinking about the worst, right?
It is normal to worry, but
there's
not
a healthy
over
worrying.
Exactly. There's a healthy worrying, but of course you're not a robot. You cannot just stop worrying. But there are special levels of worrying.
Yeah, it's true.
Unfortunately, people are extremists, like they either worry so much,
black
or
and
they
white.
don't worry at all, don't care, which is a problem. No, it has
That's
to
right.
be, in this case, it has to be medium,
That's right.
And I think that's where psychology comes. That's
That's
train
right.
you. How can you actually control your worrying and to distinguish between a healthy worry and an unhealthy worry? Because when you worry about something, it shows that you are actually showing care and showing attention to the subject or topic or object or whatever or situation. But how to control your feelings so it doesn't strike you as anxiety or it doesn't for fear not to take over. That's where psychology comes in, and that's why we need psychologists.
And what you're really saying is that these cognitive distortion that I told you that makes people overthink and over worry. What we do is with patients that come and say, I'm thinking a lot, I'm worried, I'm whatever. I'm constantly worried about things that don't even exist. Most of the time people say this to you, or they say I'm obsessing over something, or I'm creating fearful things that don't exist. I'm worrying about the future. What we do is this CBT that a lot of people hear about, this cognitive behavioral therapy. And what cognitive behavioral therapy does is that it kind of takes these distortions and kind of tells you to replace them. So the idea is that, and that's why most of the time people have heard of cognitive behavior, because it's a very common psychotherapy or a common form of treatment, and it really is treating the overthinkers, the worriers, people with anxiety disorder, people with panic attacks, because all of the reason they have these symptoms is because they've got these distortion. So today I thought I could share some of the most common cognitive distortion that makes people overthink, and also kind of identify the non-stop, endless ideas that go into your head. Now, when we're talking about obsessing over what we should say, did I say this right? Did I not say this? Is people saying this to me? These are like social anxiety. People have social anxiety constantly in front of people. They think, oh my God, am I saying the right thing? Am I not saying the right thing?
Yeah.
Or creating these fearful things, like I said, of, what's going on wrong for, or imagining faults that are not there, right?
Yeah.
Or thinking, like, when you, like, for example, if you're saying a speech, and, I see this a lot in my student. Like, they'll say a speech and one thing went wrong, and they'll come and say, oh, I just really did very bad doc, right? And it could be just one thing, but they really did. So they emphasize on this idea of this fault that they did, instead of emphasizing on the bigger picture, which they did really good.
That's a thing in our community. For example, like, this is a little bit out of subject, but speaking of right and wrong, you are a person, you do lots of good stuff, all of a sudden you do something wrong, everyone will forget all the good that you do.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
worldwide,
they will keep
no?
on remembering.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
worldwide. I mean,
The
you
bad
can
stuff.
see it
So
with a
it's
lot of situations.
Exactly. So it's in this situation, that's the power of negativity over your brain. That's the problem.
That can add to your worrying as well. I mean,
Right, and most people that really look at that, like most people that are emphasizing negativity instead of positivity, actually they are warriors, and they have anxiety disorder because, and they're always looking for the perfect picture. So obviously no one's going to be perfect, and no one's going to have a perfect picture. But when people are seeking perfection, any small thing that I do or someone else does, they can comment on it, and because you're evaluating them according to how you evaluate yourself. So if you've got this perfectionist picture and someone else makes a mistake, you're constantly putting them down, or they didn't do a good job. You see a lot of parents do this, and parents who are warriors, they will embed this in their children, and their kids grow up to also have this, like, this tool of, like, magnifying things or worrying about exams, over worry to the point that they don't really do well, or they procrastinate. So the idea is that if you are a warrior and you are a parent, you have to be able to really monitor what you're saying, because what you're doing and what you're saying, you are teaching kids. I mean, part of it obviously is genetic. People that have anxiety disorder.
That's what I wanted to ask you later on. Maybe we can drill on that. Being a warrior, does it have to do anything with your DNA, or is it something that you learned in your childhood, or is it because of situations that you've been brought up to when you were kids? Because I believe it's a bit of both, if I'm not mistaken.
It is a bit of both, and actually there is a genetic predisposition. I mean, most of the time we ask patients, do you have any disorders in your family, if it's like genetic, but actually it's genetic part of it, but the other part is that we can't dismiss is the environment. If you grow up in a place where your parents are constantly saying, don't do this, don't go this, be careful, I read a story about someone killing someone, or the news is saying this. If you constantly preoccupy, and sometimes parents are watching the news way too much, they're seeing, and then in the news, what do you see? A lot of times there's a lot of negativity or things that are unsafe. So you talk to your kids about this unsafety, thinking that you're really protecting them, but what you're really generating is kids that are not ever going to live their potential because they're worried too much. And that's the obstacle for the kids, right? So when we come back, I want to be able to talk about this common cognitive distortion. So I'm gonna say certain things. So if you're doing them, then you know that you probably have a problem, and that you need to really work on it, or seek it, or whatever. And of course, if anyone has any questions, dr.jdinka.
Exactly, on Instagram. Now we're going to move on with the playlist. We're going to do the Billboard's Top 10 Countdown from the Billboard's Hot 100. At number 10, you got Amigos featuring Drake with a song called Walk It Talk It. At number 9, you get Freaky Friday and More to Be Played with Finesse, Bruno Mars, and Cardi B being number 8 for this week. Just keep on tuning in.
Now time for the Billboard charts.
أنا ما بقلقش يا دكتور. بس
يجيلك حلم كل 4 شهور.
بحس إني أنا
We'll be back.
بحس إن أنا في آخر سنة في جامعة. أو داخل على امتحان. وأصحى بقى كل 4 شهور.
ليش كل 4 شهور؟
يعني أنا عادي مفيش معايا
كل 4 شهور.
كل 4 شهور 3 شهور.
بس يكون في شيء أكيد عم بيصير. يعني يمكن
وشمعنا الحلم ده بقاله أكثر من 4 سنين.
هو يعني هذا الحلم خوف من الفشل. فيمكن انه في خوف من الفشل، وهذه الاربع اشهر وما يمكن يعني ما يكون 4 اشهر بس انت حاسس
لا يعني
4
بس
اشهر.
كده يعني مش شهريا، ممكن مثلا 3 شهور 4 شهور.
بس يمكن انه في شيء بحياتك بهذه الاشهر بخليك تحس انه في نفس الحلم، لانه هذا حلم معناته انك انت خايف من الفشل. فيمكن انه التسلسلات في اشياء عم بتصير مثلا، وهذه التسلسلات عم بتوصلك على نفس تفكير الفشل للامتحان. خوف من الامتحان، خوف هو كله signs of الفشل. لا بس هو يمكن انك انت مش عشان انك انت فشلت، الخوف من الفشل لانه الخوف من الفشل بيخلي الواحد يحس انه دائما لازم يكون يعمل يسوي. اكيد. وفي اشياء في حياتنا، انا بظن انه في اشياء في حياتنا اللي يخلينا توصل على مرحله انه يمكن كان في مراحل في حياتي وحياتك انه حسينا انه يمكن رح نفشل وما فشلناش. بس هو يمكن كمان انك انت بوقتها كنت حاسس انك انت مش حتاخذ البكالوريا، فطبعا لازم انه احنا لازم نفكر بالوقتها شنو كان المشاعر، وهذه المشاعر مبين انك انت ما زال حاسس انت تخرجت. فالمشكله انه كل مره ما بيجي لك تقييم بشيء، شغل في شيء، حاط شيء في بالك انك انت عايز تحصله، رح يرجع لك نفس الشعور اللي انت كنت شعره انه انا مش رح اخذ البكالوريا.
شكرا يا دكتور.
شكرا، خلاص حليت المشكلة.
حليت المشكلة. طلعت فاشل يا جدعان.